All right, it looks like some new stuff has come to light in this episode of Wandavision, which we're about to go over right now. Welcome back. It really feels good to be back, sort of doing these reviews and whatnot, wherever you're watching this on the Young Ripper 59 Entertainment channel or the main channel at youtube.com/YoungRipper59. I appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, we're not talking about WandaVision. Don't get me wrong. Point still stands. As I mentioned in the previous video, a lot of you guys, because of the whole Gina situation, canceled Disney Plus. Totally understandable. That's why I'm here. I'm going to give you that information as far as what's going on with this whole ordeal. What are my thoughts coming from a guy that actually reads these comic books and isn't a like Marvel Cinematic Universe is complete normie. So you know how we do things over here. WandaVision is, look, it started off the way that it started off. Some people had some problems with it. I didn't have much of a problem with how it started, as a lot of other people did, but I certainly understand where those people were coming from. But now it's starting to feel like an actual show. It's certainly existing in Marvel's universe, which is, I don't want to say it's akin to some of the previous stuff that we had seen, but it certainly is giving you the vibes of what feels more so like what people expect from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, minus the all explosions and everything else. But in this episode of WandaVision, and I got my notes here per usual, let's get into this. But what we have here is still set up kind of like this sitcom, but it's more modernized. It's more of the recent kind of forms of a sitcom where you have this whole ordeal. I'm pretty sure there's an actual term for it where so-and-so's talking to the camera, giving their thoughts about what's going on. You know, we see kind of all of that almost set up like it's almost like a reality show or what have you, but you know, it is a sitcom after all, and that's what we're getting with. And what we see here is that Wanda is in some control, and I will talk about kind of as it picked up how much that sort of changed, but it still is more so being acknowledged that Wanda is in some sort of control with the whole deal that happened at the end of the last episode, where she was able to expand the world as it was and bring some people into this particular reality in Westview. And we know what happened with some of the FBI SWAT agents. They have been basically taken over into this, not all of them, but a lot of them have, and they've turned into like members of a circus and all kinds of stuff, and that includes Darcy. And we'll talk about a little bit of that here in a little bit. But the interesting thing, I guess, about this episode to acknowledge at the beginning is how, as Wanda is in her, again, in this realm that you're led to believe she's in all control, some stuff starts to change around her. There's an instance where the twins are actually playing video games, and the controller that they're using is like constantly changing, almost changing different sort of eras of, you know, this is what happened during the show, but it's happening all at once here, where they go from having like a classic joystick to having an actual controller sort of in their hand that seems more modernized. And this happens as well with Wanda being in her own house and seeing staircases, and everything around her starts to change. So it's as if she is in control, but she's losing it at the same time. So is it because the world's expanding? All of this stuff is what makes the reader, audience, thinking in terms of comic books, audience sort of try to understand what's happening as everything is starting to change, certainly around her. There's an interesting point where she was talking to the kids that I did want to bring up, that they asked about their uncle, right? Obviously Quicksilver, the one that came from the Fox universe, so it seems. So they ask about that, which is kind of just a regular question, but her response is very interesting in that she basically says that to the kids that was not their uncle. And I don't know if this is coming from the last episode when he said, well, you know, Vision basically, your husband can't die twice, which indeed he actually did do that. But Wanda also is becoming more nihilistic here. You know, it's kind of weird that she's talking like, yeah, I'm not in control. I'm in control, but I'm not in control. Nothing matters. nothing that I do matters. All of this sort of thing where it's getting really, really dark in terms of how she's communicating this stuff with her kids, and she even acknowledges that. So there's an attitude change, I guess, to acknowledge here with at her emotional state, and that's why, for those of you that aren't familiar with the House of M, I don't think this is like just a depiction, definitely with what was revealed at the end, just a depiction of what happened with House of M. But it certainly starts to give off those vibes when you consider that this is her being in this like kind of very, very distraught emotional state, which is what popped that whole thing off. But let's get to Vision, and I mentioned Vision Darcy, which was an interesting thing because Vision, obviously, when he was outside of the Hex, the reality of Westview, when he met head on with some of these Sword and FBI agents, he was slowly dying. But unlike what happens because of his, I guess, because of his powers and whatnot, when he got back, and she did expand the world, but when he got back in there, he goes back to normal. Interesting thing here because as you know, Vision can't. We know that she can't, or nobody really can, control Vision like they can the other characters or the other people in Westview. Now, it just confirms everybody that gets into this sort of hex, well, aside from another character, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but when they go into Westview, they basically are in their own another dimension, and as far as they don't see the world as they did before. We saw that with Sword Agents, we saw that with Darcy as he's communicating with her, saying, "Hey, do you remember me? We locked these eyes outside of this hex," and she's like, she has no idea what's going on, so he had to do the deal where he touches their minds to kind of free them of these shackles, and she did that to him, and he did that to her, and she got back to sort of what was going on, and that's when they decided to kind of team up to go back to their own house, or to his house, Vision, to try to kind of piece together the puzzle and try to find out what's going on. I guess the most interesting thing that's going to come from this episode that a lot of people are going to talk about is, of course, what happened with Monica. And what happened there is that first, before she goes back in there, there's sort of this instance where she goes in there with like this space equipment. They're thinking they're going to drive right through it. That's not what happened. The little space car that went in, it didn't. It kind of, the front end of it kind of changed. It kind of lets you know that they're altering reality or changing it to what they want it to be. So it kind of changed there, and it kind of bounced off of the outside of Westview. And she just, for whatever reasons, decides, she says, I can go in there. So she sprints in there. And we get once she gets in there, rather, that whole little conversation, it's not a conversation per se with someone else, but more so with herself, remembering things that people said. And she's kind of, oh, hey, look at me, I'm determined. It was a really corny scene as far as I'm concerned. But she's like, hey, I'm determined. I'm going to go through there. And she finally gets all the way through. And we start to see her eyes start to flash. We also see blue sparks kind of coming from her, which of course is acknowledgement, which is what I feared, that this is how she gets her powers for whatever reason it seems, going in and out. Now, hopefully this is something this is like how it seems right now. I think this is what's going to happen with Scarlet Witch as well at some point, in that maybe that Mind Stone or whatever didn't actually give her the powers. She was a mutant the entire time. Maybe it activated some sort of X gene or something like that. I don't know. But if this is how they're going to give her powers, where basically it's just, well, she went in and out of this deal and it was rewriting her cells and now she has power. It is going to be the most dumb way to give her power. Obviously, it's not akin to anything that happened in the book, but it's going to be really, really stupid. And if you look at some of I think it was the one that I reviewed, episodes 1 through 5, I mentioned that. But that's what everybody's going to take from it. That's starting to seem like she is getting control of her powers. You can also see, as a matter of fact, let me see if I can grab that for you, because I wanted to show you how she looks in her sword with that kind of very, I don't know what kind of blue. I'm not one of those guys that knows all the damn different blues, navy blue, baby blue, everything. But it's a darker kind of bluish and white deal. That is, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, and I'm not going to bring it really close to it here, because you're not going to be able to see it because of how I have my lighting. But let's drop this down real quick. But as you can see, this is her in Ultimates right here. Let me bring it back in the light. This is unfortunately America Chavez. who will be appearing. His trash character will be appearing at some point. I believe in the. I think they said in the Doctor Strange multiverse movie. But that's her, and as you can see, kind of having the navy blue with the symbol in the middle, as well as those darker kind of bluish pants. Is kind of what she has right now, and she's rocking. So it's more of the recent incarnations, not where before it was more of a almost all white top. Which again, it's a nod, kind of. She is in sword attire, but it is a nod to how she has looked as in her more recent incarnations, not the original Captain Marvel incarnation when she first appeared. So just wanted to throw that out there for you guys who may not have known that. It's going to be interesting to see how what direction they take that whole entire instance. Let's move on. So, oh well, yeah, I almost forgot. Yes, besides the Captain Marvel thing, or excuse me, Monica Rambeau thing, hopefully they don't make her come Captain Marvel, but they are calling her Captain, and we know that there's a conflict. I did predict that that's good what's going to end up happening, unfortunately. But interesting enough about this situation here is Agnes. Of course, that's going to be the other thing that people talked about, because a lot of folks predicted that she was going to be Agatha, and Harkness, and that's exactly who she is. She has revealed herself, which is, I'll give them credit. It was a decent way to do it, because she did take the kids away, as in, all right, let's give your mama some alone time. She took the kids, I think, to her own crib, and after Monica shows up, there's a little conversation there. Now, again, the one thing that is you need to mention is that when Monica went back in, I almost forgot. When Monica went back into Westview, she wasn't like under that kind of mind control thing that she had been previously, or any of the other characters. So that's an interesting thing. So you have Vision as well as her that were able to get in there without having to be touched by, let's say, Vision, and remember life as it exists, like in the actual reality. But anyway, so there's a slight conflict there between Monica and Scarlet Witch, which was very interesting, because what you not only see is that she doesn't want to hurt her, which you already knew that. You didn't know Scarlet did not want to hurt her. She's like, why are you here? She didn't know that she was there, so it lets you know that she's not in as much control as we were led on to believe. But her and Monica kind of talking out. You see Monica's powers kind of start to activate and stuff as well. Eyes still glowing blue, if I'm not mistaken, in that particular scene. But as she's trying to reason with her, like, hey, okay, this is what's happening. This is what the SWORD agents are thinking before. This is why they want Vision back and all of this sort of thing. She's trying to explain this to her. As resistant as she is, it doesn't really come to a close, that scene, until Agnes shows up and says, okay, we're done here. So clearly Agnes didn't like what was going on. She kind of grabs her, walks away, and then what we find out, once they go back to the house, the twins have disappeared, and she's like, hey, where's the twins? This is what Scarlet Witch asked. I keep calling her that. They don't call her that yet, but I'm going to call her. Mama named her Scarlet Witch. I'm going to call her Scarlet Witch. Anyway, though that's not her name. Not here. So, Wanda, if you will. Ask where the twins are. Asking Agnes. Agnes says, well, they might be down there in the basement. So she goes to the basement. She sees some kind of bizarre things. And that's when Agatha reveals that Agnes reveals that she's Agatha. She's like, you're not the only one that like does magic here. And then we get this kind of closing scene of like kind of a sitcom deal, which is almost basically a compilation video that shows that she was in charge the whole time. And that's what they say, like Wanda, it was Agnes the entire time, and that she was in control. Some people had predicted that and thought that, but I think a lot of folks thought that the twist would be Mephisto. People had alluded to that. As it stands right now, that doesn't mean that he won't show up or he won't be a part of this. Maybe he has nothing to do with it, though, as well. And Agnes does have some connection to her. They're setting her up kind of as if she is a villain, though, right here. But she does have that connection to Wanda and kind of being this sort of a mentor. I don't know how they're going to make this connection, if they're going to go really in depth to her being back with the witch trials and all that. I don't know what direction they're going to go with that. But what the big reveal at the end of that was, okay, yeah, she is Agatha and she was in control at least the entire time, at least is what they say. So I guess the question here then becomes, versus, or rather in comparison to Scarlet Witch, how control is Agatha? And how much in control is Wanda? I guess that's what we're going to need to try to figure out. Also, there's an end credit scene, or mid credit scene, if you will, that shows how it was interesting. So Wanda, I guess, is trying to get to the basement, trying to figure out what's going on, and then Quicksilver shows up and says something like, "A snooper's gonna snoop." Now, the Quicksilver thing is interesting because they did show in that little compilation sort of videos that show that she was in charge the whole time, that she was in control of him at some capacity, but we still don't know. At least I don't. Maybe somebody will have some prediction that, okay, it was fake the entire time. It wasn't actually like this alternate reality version of this, Quicksilver. We don't know that, but it does show that he shows back up. Like, is he real? Is he not? Versus how much is real and how much is not. I guess is the question that's going to be need to be answered, because everybody, of course, is alluding to the multiversal element because that was his face, right? That Steve Pietro that we saw was the version from Fox's X-Men. However, if that could be a complete wash, or maybe they go in a different direction, that it was just a fake person the entire time. We just wanted to make a nod and to that. So it could be either or. The easy route would, of course, be, this is acknowledging some sort of multiversal element. But if they really wanted to throw it for a spin, they could just say he's fake. So then we have to try to piece this up in a different way. So conclusion, look, WandaVision's picking up. A lot of people are going to like this. The only thing that I will say is that this confirms to me, and I'm seeing the reactions and the response to so many people, certainly online, that are that thought it started off slow, that are starting to like the show. And it just goes to show that, and why, for those of you that don't understand, why I get so frustrated when I sit here and watch certain comic book based material. And when they deviate, look, I don't know anybody that's a super fan like me of actual books that will sit here and expect every single thing to be exactly like the comic book. But what it does highlight is that even if they did try to do that, much like DC does some of their animated material where they get almost all of it from the source material, the fans would eat it up anyway. So this is why when the Jack Schafers of the world say they have no desire, which I believe she's part of this project, no desire to sit here and acknowledge source material because they feel like it was discriminatory or some stupid stuff like that. That right there is bogus, because if they actually wrote it in a way that did what there was more so or not, it wouldn't matter. Because they would still eat this up. The fans would still eat this up. The fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to eat it up. It's all new to them. Everything they learn about these characters is they show up, they Google them real fast, then they become an expert on from Wikipedia article or wiki or something like that. That's how it works. So why not make as many nods to the source material as you possibly can? That's the frustration. And as I'm watching this play out, I've been doing this with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but as I'm watching this play out, it's like, dude, y'all, these guys will eat it up anyway. So aside from wanting to massage your own egos, because Lord knows you just can't, as a writer, or screenwriter, or director, or anything, you can't refer to that. You got to put your own spin on it. Like, why deviate so far from the material? But I'm not saying that that's what WandaVision is. We'll see where it takes these characters. But yeah, if they give Monica the powers that they will, yeah, I'm going to have a fit. That's just what it is. I already told y'all that was going to happen. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoy the review. Stay tuned. Follow me here, wherever you're watching the video, wherever I decide to upload the video. But we have Young Group of 5'9", as well as the Young Group of 5'9" Entertainment. We have 2 pages now. Wherever you're watching the video, subscribe to one or the other. Subscribe to both if you don't mind. And I appreciate you guys, all the support you guys have been showing, as we can finally get back to doing some more like comic book based material, which a lot of you guys know me for. Hope you enjoyed the video though, as I said, and until next time, y'all be easy.